team.
Hello, this is Malorian, and this is going to be my coverage of the Dark Elves book. So this one I was pretty excited for because it's another big change in the system. Of course, GW has been trying to clean things up from before and really just, it's not so much of a thing of trying to fix all the broken armies. It's just more of a thing where things worked before, but they don't work now. So they fixed Empire and their Infinity Power Dice. They fixed the Lizardmen and the Rumination. And now we're going to be coming here and we're going to be fixing the Dark Elves. And one of the cool things is that I made sure that I'm not going to check any rumors. I mean, of course, you're going to hear the stuff that people talk about. You're going to see the pictures released and all these things. But I tried really hard to stay away from it so it could be more of a surprise. And plus, I'm tired too of when I get really excited about something and it turns out to be a false rumor. So there's a few things in here where I turned the page like, what the hell is this? I didn't know this was even going to happen, but we'll get there. So the first thing to talk about is the whole idea where in this one here, I'll be talking about the main army. I'm not going to be talking about special characters. That's going to happen later. So, of course, there's going to be things where a special character really biases this and that. I'm going to be talking as if there's no special characters. Come back later. So, really talking about, the main army rules, the choices, the magic, the items, popular builds that I expect to see, and that's kind of my thoughts on the whole book. So, jumping into here, I don't know if anything changed with the core fluff, really, because I'm not really that big into the fluff. I'd rather read through the rules, read through them again to make sure I didn't miss anything or kind of swap something over, got everything straight. But going here with the army rules, the first thing you can't help but do is compare these guys to the High Elves, because you know for a fact they're trying to bring all the elves together and trying to make the rules kind of similar, but give them their own flavor. And so the first thing here is kind of neat where the High Elves have martial prowess. These guys have murderous prowess. And I was wondering what they're going to do with this, but what it is that really, if you have this rule, which is pretty much all the Dark Elves, then you get to re-roll all of your ones to wound in close combat. This is one of those things where they take a double take, so they're like, oh, for bolt throwers, this will be awesome. But you know what? This also really applies. It's almost like comparing this to the predatory fighter rule for the Lizardmen, where, okay, it's a nice little bonus sometimes for your main units. I mean, you're not going to turn it away, but the big thing here is I think you're going to see a lot more for your characters, where, if you have a character that's up to have some sort of crazy weapon that's going to be wounding on a 2+, if you ever get those ones, okay, re-roll them. So this is where you're going to kind of see this. And I mean, it's not massive, but it's pretty damn nice. And hey, like, you're not going to turn away, right? The next one here is Hecate's Blessing. And really all this is for your sorceresses saying, you know what, you're going to have +1 to all your attempts to cast things from the lore of dark magic. Just trying to encourage you to use your own lore, giving you a little bit of a boost there. And the High Elves had the same thing with theirs. Then you have Eternal Hatred. And at first, this isn't that big of a deal, because you know what? Dark Elves had hatred before. That was the thing. High Elves had Always Strike First. Dark Elves had hatred, blah, blah, blah. But now they're bringing them together. So really, now they switched over to Always Strike First, and they also have hatred towards the High Elves. That's going to be situational, especially when I talk about builds later. But for the most part here, the main thing is that this is a really good thing for the Dark Elves getting to have the Always Strike First. Because, first of all, between the two, you're getting rerolls, right? Either way, you're getting rerolls. These are Elves. Your initiative's pretty damn high, so you should be getting rerolls on this. But now you're also going to be striking first. So that's a pretty big deal. And the other thing is, of course, hatred was only the first round. Now this is going to keep going. So this is definitely a good thing to have for the Dark Elves. Then you have a little bit of an armory thing here. So you have your repeater crossbows just for them. Nothing really new there changing. Your repeater hand bows, again, nothing really changing there. What I really like is this brace of repeater hand bows. And I mean, it's nothing crazy. It's basically just saying, hey, if you want to use these two hands, one in each hand, go for it. You have 4 shots. And just the idea of this guy with these double bows, I just like the idea. So, I don't know. I don't play them, but I'm going to hope I get to see a conversion. we're going to skip ahead now, and we're going to be going to the magic. And here we are, the lore of dark magic. You can see here it's really set up like the high magic, where you have the 2 signature spells. Everything is fairly solid. I'm wondering going forward, I mean, you couldn't really say it for the Lizardmen because there was the same lore as the High Elves, but I'm wondering now for the next book and the books after, are all of the lores going to be having 2 signature spells now? I mean, here I thought it was a special thing for the high magic, and I guess, the Dark Elves, this is kind of like a corrupted thing, but, we're going to start seeing double signature spells for everything? Who knows? Either way, let's get to their lore attribute. Now, this one is kind of nothing really great, but what it is that whenever you basically do something to the opponent, so if it's a hex, magic missile, direct damage, really all that matters is that if you ever get a double, then you also to those enemy units do 2d6 strength 1 hits with the armor pierce. It might kill a guy, something like that. And if you ever roll triples, 3d6 strength 1 armor pierce. Again, it's like, it's almost not even worth your time to really watch it because it's like, oh, okay, I have to grab these, do more. But, it does go with it, right? Personally, I'd rather have the +1 ward save like the High Elves. But, you're not going to turn this away. It's still something extra. But, it was a little bit disappointing because it is fairly minor. However, this could be made better if you're using this in combination with other things, which are going to be reducing toughness. So, I mean, if you combine this and there's somebody else with, shadow that's going to be reducing, then you can kind of like use the 2 together. But it's too situational to really plan on. Just if you ever get it, hurrah. If you don't, whatever. All right. First signature spell is the Power of Darkness. And I think this is a pretty damn good spell. Because from the very onset, what it really is an augment, right? I get +1 strength on a unit. Before, you got extra dice back. Now you get this +1 strength. And on top of that, you also get +D3 power dice as well. So it's almost doing both. Well, not almost. It is doing both things. And what I love about it is that you always hear about people saying, hey, I'm going to throw this spell out there first to draw out the dispel dice so I can get this later. Well, this is pretty damn good because it's pretty much a guaranteed one because you throw these dice out there and either they stop it and you drew out their dispel dice or they don't stop it, you get your dice back from the D3, roughly, and then also your unit has +1 strength. It's basically a win-win. So a very, very nice spell to have, and especially when you're in these elves, we're going to be having a lot of strength 3 through the book. Making this stuff strength 4, strength 5, it's almost like the whole wild form kind of stacking, right? It just gets better and better. But the one bad thing, however, is that if you ever get 3 dice, then you're also going to be taking a wound with no armor saves. So, if you think over 6 turns, if you're doing this all the time, on average, you should be having this happen twice. So if you're a hero, you'll die. If you're a lord, you'll be with 1 wound. But if there's a miscast or something, maybe that'll be the 3rd wound from this. And so that is something to worry about. I think overall, it's not going to be too big of a factor because, hey, a lot of people like having ward saves onto their casters. So, I mean, only half the time that even happens, you'll take a wound. Plus, it's not like you're going to be casting this all the time. I mean, like, you're probably not going to be doing it on the first turn because there's not that much to get done. And it's really going to be on the turn 2 and 3, the combat turns, where you're really going to be pushing this out. And then on, past that, it's more cleanup time. You're not going to be seeing so much of this spell. So I don't think that negative is a big deal, but it's certainly something to keep in mind. Signature number 2 is Doombolt. It's kind of like Soul Quench, except 1 stronger. So either normally it does at 18-inch range, 2d6 strength 5 hits, or you can boost up and then it does 46, but then it does, you need strength 5 as well, but it's also going to be a 24 to cast. So pretty damn hard to do, but that is a pretty awesome magic missile. Especially for seeing this in a signature, thing where I can just always drop down and have this, it is pretty nice. Now, I mean, if you're doing this with a level 4, and remember, you also get a +1. So basically, you're needing to get a 19 to get this off. and that's a good amount of dice because at 5 dice, that's 17 and a half is your average there, I believe. Yeah, so that's not even enough. So you're really need to be rolling like all 6 dice to try and get this spell off. And even at that point, I mean, you it's in your favor to get it, but hey, you could still mess it up and not get it off. If you do get it off, I mean, the average of the 4d6, you're going to be getting 14. At strength 5, it gets stuff from 3. You can be wiping out a lot of dudes, but I think the big thing here to remember with this is that this is going to be like the magic phase. Taking all this and it's going to like, bam, 6 dice, and hoping it goes off. And but either way, basically I'm saying this because I did hear a lot of things about how people like this is just power creep because high elves have this, these guys are this. Well, again, remember, dark elves are supposed to be more of the aggressive. So hey, there's gonna be nothing in here where you're getting up to a 3+ ward save. There's nothing gonna be here. We're gonna be destroying magic items. This is the offensive magic set, and I expect to see this to be a little bit stronger. Now we have another magic missile. We have Chillwind. It's not bad. 2d6 strength 2. You get a longer range at 24. And it's also going to be affecting their ballistic skill. So really it's a nice thing if you're ever having, say, whatever skirmishers, whatever guys running around you. This will be a good thing to kill those guys off because usually they're pretty weak anyway. So the strength 2, hey, you'll be wounding them on 5s. Not too bad. And the other thing too is, I mean, then they're not shooting you as well. And when you're toughness 3 squishy elves, and there's a lot of naked ones in here, it's good if they're not hitting you as much. Now, the next one I like a lot. And that's Word of Pain. Now, Word of Pain is a hex, 24 inches. And what it does is the target model there suffers minus D3 weapon skill and bliss skill. Not too crazy there, right? Like, sure, reduce their weapon skill. Now they might be needing 5s in combat. Okay, sure, whatever. Or it's a shooting unit. You're really just making sure they're going to have a really hard time shooting. That's minor. However, you can then instead choose to make it more powerful, and then you're going to be also inflicting minus D3 to their strength and initiative. And that doesn't make it that hard to cast. At that point, it's a 12. That's basically meaning that you're needing to roll a 7. So on 2 dice, on average, you're getting this thing off. And that's massive. Minusing the bliss skill, whatever, that's okay. Minusing the strength, that's a really big deal. Now we're going to be going on to the next one called Blade Wind. Now, Blade Wind is direct damage, 24-inch range, and every model in there must pass a weapon skill test. Never seen anything done like this before. My poor Night Goblins with their weapon skill too. But they must pass a weapon skill test or suffer a strength 4 hit armor piercing. So, for the most part, weapon skill is pretty solid. This will be affecting like half the unit, a strength 4. I mean, you'll be doing okay. But again, this is where I think it's a lot like a lore of Nurgle, where you go like, wow, combine that with Word of Pain, if their weapon skill is already reduced by D3, and then you cast this spell, you can just be devastating in complete hordes, right? So pretty big combination there. If nothing else, even if you didn't get off Word of Pain, this one by itself is pretty good, especially if it is those larger units. And it's also not that hard to cast. It's a very easy one to cast. Next one here is Shrouded Despair. This is a hex and only range of a 12, but it's all enemy units within 12. And what this really does, which is really nice, is that they can't get Hold Your Ground, so Empire, and you also don't get the Inspiring Presence. So this can be pretty big because there are a lot of leadership shenanigans in this book. So, I mean, even if there wasn't leadership shenanigans in the book, taking that stuff away can be pretty big. So that if you're not dealing with, steadfast all the time, if you can be making it easier for them to fail that steadfast, that's a pretty big deal. As well, if one of those targets ever fail a leadership test, then all of a sudden, they're all going to be suffering another -1 leadership. So that's more situational, but hey, it's a nice little bonus. Now we're going to have Soul Stealer. This is going to be direct damage, and it's going to be a small template that you put anywhere 18, scatters the D6, and this is going to be doing a strength 2 hit, no armor saves. And it's kind of like, that's all right. But then you're going to be rolling a d6 for each of these unsaved wounds, and on a 4+, your caster will be getting wounds back. This is almost like kind of like an offensive apotheosis that only heals up the caster. And when you think about the power of darkness, where you might be hurting yourself as this goes on, it's nice to have something else here where you'll say like, hey, I'm going to cast this. It's not going to do a lot of damage, but I should get back a wound or two, and that could save your level 4. So it's nice to have this in there. Again, it's not that hard to cast. You can extend this to make it 36, and then it gets a little bit harder to cast, but even then, 3 dice should be able to cast it most of the time. Then we have their something black horror. This is going to be your magical vortex, and really what's going to be happening for this one is that, you're going to be shooting it out, and with this one here, you have to pass a strength test or be slain outright with no armor saves allowed. And if you have a ward save, you only get 1 of them. So if you're somebody who has a re-rollable ward save, no, you just get the 1 ward save. But this is a thing where it seemed like the first spells they came out with maybe were a little bit strong, where the spell would just kill you completely. But now we're having this again, where if you fail it, you're just slain outright. You fail that strength test, you're gone. So there was a kind of hope that they said, like, okay, they started that off with an 8th, now they're going to be kind of drawing back from it, but hey, it's right here. And, maybe if nothing else, maybe they need some of this stuff, because we are seeing some pretty strong characters now, say like the Demon Princes and stuff, where it would be really nice where, hey, they're only going to be failing on a 6, but if, this one here is not that hard to get off, and, maybe just keep on going and trying to get that 6. If nothing else, it's a thing too, where you just throw this through a unit, there are going to be a lot of fails there. Same thing, if you get a misfire, you're going to actually put it on your own caster, you're going to scatter from there, and it's going to go around after. But it's one of these things where it's alright. You can boost it up to a large template, and then it's really hard to cast. But, yeah, it's one of these things where, it's good to have in your bag of tricks there, and it's not overly bad. Now, again, here, you're trying to pass a strength test, so that word of pain where you're reducing their strength, again, if you can get the combos off, that's really good. So pretty much for an anti-Dark Elf thing, if you ever see them casting Word of Pain, that's the one to stop, right? That's the Throne of Vines from Lore of Life. You see this Word of Pain, you just stop that spell. All right. The Armory. First one we got here is the Hydra Blade. And this is their 100-point item. And what's going to really give you, and they really word it kind of odd, because they say it gives you random attack, which is D6 plus A, where A equals your attack characteristic. I don't know why this doesn't say it adds D6 attacks. That seems to make that a little bit more making sense, but whatever. That's the way they word it out. But really the thing where I don't like this, well, first of all, let's say this. You, as well, have to go and take a leadership test of -2. If you fail that, now you're going to have a -5 to your weapon skill, but you have heroic killing blow. That's okay. If you're -5 weapon skill, you're not going to be hitting anything, whatever. Like that whole second thing adds in the randomness that I know a lot of people don't want to have, especially when it's an 100-point item. And the thing is, too, is, when you're adding D6, the average there is 3.5. Why not just take the Sword of Bloodshed and always add 3, right? Save 40 points, always have that there. That's what I do. I don't see this as a good one at all. Then we have the Chill Blade. This one here, attacks made with this weapon, wound automatically, and anyone who takes a wound from this must pass a toughness test or suffer -3 to their attacks until the end of their next turn. So this one I see as something being good if you're trying to attack something with lots of wounds that's not going to be dying in your first attack and that there's going to be a return. So to me, this is something where I'm going to be fighting an ogre. You know, I know this ogre character is going to have like 5 wounds, and you know it's going to be trying to crush me with this big like great weapon or something. I'm going to go in there and attack. I'm going to use this. You're now going to be -3 attacks, and now with your 1 attack, 2 attack, whatever the guy set up with, you're not going to be probably doing anything back to me. I can finish the job. Seems very situational to me. I like builds that try and dedicate everything to the first round of combat. If you have somebody like here that's supposed to be like a character killer, just make him a character killer type thing, right? Or maybe instead of paying these 50 points here to be reducing those attacks, get a ward save or something as well. I mean, I'm sure with this now you can make a very defensive build where you're minusing their attacks and you can have like a ward save, but at the same time, this, all it really normally gives you is an auto wound. If they have a pretty good armor save, they're just going to be saving this stuff and they can crush you back. So really not that big of a fan of this. I mean, maybe if you're trying to take out monsters or something like that, maybe this can help. But it seems overall just making something more offensive that's just going to try and kill the guy outright or try and run him down, right? It just seems like a very, very situational weapon. Not really a fan. Next one we have here, the Black Dragon Egg. 50 points, pretty much for this. You're going to be getting Strength 6, Toughness 6 for the player turn. So just the player turn. Oh, sorry. Yeah, just the rest of that turn, man. It's one of these things where it's like for both, that'd be pretty awesome, but whatever. And you also get a Strength 2 breath weapon. So no armor saves allowed against it, but at Strength 2, it's not going to be doing very much. You're basically wounding at 5s at best. Sure, you'll be killing a couple of knights. And I think the real thing here is that if you have this on somebody else that doesn't normally have a good way of being survivable or getting good strength, this is a good way to get this in there. But we'll be talking about these characters later. But it's one of these things here where, I don't know, for the 50 points, I can get Toughness 6 with a potion of toughness, and then for the rest of the points, I can get a great weapon or something like that else too. It just seems, I don't know, nothing that's really impressing me. It's not as bad as the Hydra Blade, but it's just not really impressing me. Next one here is one that I do like, and this one here is the Cloak of Twilight. And this one is going to give you a 3+ ward save against wounds from shooting and spells, so everything ranged. As well, the first round of any close combat, the wearer gets a killing blow and also the multiple wounds D3. And there's going to be a perfect place to put this item coming up here. But just one of these things where if nothing else, I mean, a 3+ ward at range, there is so many good things to use that spell for. I mean, well, not spell, that item for, right? If you have some guy that's going to be flying around, be doing a, war machine hunting and stuff like that, or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of good options in this book for this. One that's going to be very clear. But either way, a very cool item. And nice, again, that they made it offensive as well, right? So sure, it's a 3+ ward. But the cool thing as well is that when you go in, you're going to get Heroic Killing Blow and a D3 wounds. Next one here is we have the Black Amulet. This is the one where you get a 4+ ward for 15 more points than normal. However, if in a challenge you make your ward save, then you're going to be inflicting against the attacker 1 wound with no armor saves against it. So it's one of these things where it's okay. I mean, paying that extra 15 points, if he's going to be dedicated to combat, to bounce back wounds, why not, right? That can kind of help you get that extra stuff in there. I'm not going to say this is a bad item. It's expensive. It's going to have to be on a Lord. But, hey, you know what? It's something that, sure, like I said, if you're going to be making him as your challenge guy, all right, this could be something nice in there. Now you're going to be having the Ring of Hotek. This is going to be your full 50 points. And this one here is going to be giving you Magic Resistance 3. And in addition, whenever an enemy wizard that attempts to cast or target a spell within 6 inches of the bearer, they will suffer a miscast on a double 1 or a double 6. And if it's on a double 1, it won't be the irresistible force. So basically, it's a good way of getting your magic resistance 3. And for 5 points more, if you get this into their grill, then they're going to be casting more often. So, not a bad thing again. If you're building something here, just like I said, get something really into their face fast, why not, right? This is something that could be not too bad. Is a lot of points, though. Then we're going to be having the banner of Nagaroth. I mean, if I'm mispronouncing that, sorry, but all models in this unit is going to be having Unbreakable. Plus, if there's any, Shadow Walkers or Aleth and are from the High Elf book within 12, they will also be like that as well. So it's that unit and all units within 12. So this is a really nice banner in that it makes pretty much your army unbreakable. Here we see you. I was going to make sure I'm not messing this up. No, sorry. Yeah, it's not. It's just going to make your units. Only if those other units are within 12. So it's not actually going to apply to your entire army. And this is a thing here where I think you're going to be using this on, like, say, a big unit. It's got to be something that's going to be combat-wise. It's going to be like, haha, this is my Death Star. But at 100 points, your BSB is going to be having nothing else. He is going to be easy to kill because he has nothing else. Why would you take this? I mean, pretty much the only time I'd see this being sneaky is like, hey, you take this on a lone steed guy, right? And he just charges out. And because of his other gear, he'll have a 2+ save. And no matter how much you lose by, haha, I'm unbreakable. Why not just take the Stubborn Crown? So it just seems a really expensive item in there just for fluff. But hey, why not, right? Gem of Spite, this one's alright. Whenever the bearer miscasts, so this is kind of weird where you actually want to miscast yourself, the Gem of Spite inflicts a strength 6 hit to every enemy wizard within 12. As well, each time the wound is caused by the Gem of Spite, your opponent can discard dice from their dispel pool. If they do so, then there's no wound. So really, if you take this, which is going to be an arcane item, you can then combine that with the Ring of Hotek, and this is going to be a type of your guy that you just want to get into their lines. Because first of all, enemy wizards within that 6 are going to be miscasting on the double 6 or the double 1. Then, if you yourself miscast, then this is going to be a thing where they're also going to be taking a strength 6 hit. Now, the problem here is that this is going to have to be on a wizard. And whereas the Ring of Hotek, sure, I can put this on a BSB, I can put this on some support character and get in there and really try and, like, while I'm killing the unit, basically just neuter the guy as well. The gem, because it has to be on a mage, also the mage has to be up there. So I think there is the possibility of running a mage on like a dragon or something like that out too, but you really then would need the Cloak of Twilight. And you can't really do all of these at the same time. And, I mean, doing the strength hit to the enemy wizard is nice, but at the same time, it's situational. You're putting yourself in a dangerous situation. I don't know. It's one of those things where I'd almost rather, if you're doing that, then combine that with the Cloak of Twilight so that your mage that's going to be flying around or whatever is more defensible, and then you're actually having all your points there and staying safe as well. So it's just one of these things where you look at this, you see the synergies, but the synergies also put in a lot of risk, right? Because right away you see that Gem of Spike, Ring of Hotek get into your face, but all of a sudden I'm getting my mage into your face, and that's a bad idea. So be very careful with that. Sacrificial Dagger. This one here is not bad. It's not as crazy as the last one. It's not automatic because now it's like before where, hey, when you're done rolling, you kill somebody in the unit, and then on a 4+, you get to roll another dice. If you fail, you can either choose to roll again, kill another guy, and keep on going like that. So it could be that, hey, just going to keep on killing guys, might kill 2 ranks of guys before it actually works. But, I think that's a nice little thing just to add a little bit of uncertainty to it, because it seemed too sure before that, I need an extra dice, whatever. And now there's a little bit more of a risk, because you might have to kill like 3 guys to get that extra dice, and it could just be like an extra 1, right? So it could be all for nothing. So it definitely a nice item, but it, being arcane, when you're picking between this and a Dispel Scroll, It really is going to come in more when you're running double mages. All right, and then finally we have the Tomb of Furion. Not very many points. Also arcane, though. And what this one really lets you do is when you're generating from the lore of the dark magic, you get to choose one of the spells. So it's kind of like the poor man's lore master, where if normally you're like, I really have to take this spell. So I'm going to take lore master so I know all the spells. Well, this one here is cheaper, and it's going to be, okay, well, I'll just make sure I know this, and then you roll for the others. Really going and looking at the dark lore, I mean, the one to have, like we said, is the Word of Pain. I don't know, because again, it's like, would I rather be certain I'll have Word of Pain in every game, or would I rather just roll it off, usually have it anyway, and then also have a Dispel Scroll? So for the most part, I'm a risky guy. I play orcs. I'm going to go for the scroll, and don't worry about this. But I'm sure there's going to be people that really like it. So looking over this, I would say the biggest loser is the Hydra Blade. I really wish they'd make cooler 100-point items, but whatever. If it was plus a D6 and you always had to roll Killing Blow, that'd be nice. But because this whole leadership thing you have in there, and it minuses your weapon skill, not really a fan. The winners in this book here, I would say, it's really hard because I like the dagger, but because it's competing with the scroll, it's going to be hard to say if you really want that or not. So it's really going to be kind of like these kind of cheaper support things. So, it's almost where I'm looking through this, and there's not really any clear winners other than the Cloak of Twilight. I'm trying to find something else I can compete with it, but that Cloak of Twilight, definitely my favorite. Straight up, 3+ ward, doesn't need to be on a lord, and gives you these extra bonuses as well. So, not from combat, but hey, at least it's really good if you're going to be flying around. So now we're going to be going through the actual units, and again, I'm not going to cover any of the special characters, but we'll just start going through this. So, Lords, we have a good number of them. Of course, lots of them are special characters, but for those who aren't, of course, the first thing you have there is your Dreadlord. Plain old, regular, awesome dude. I'm going to lead this. He's a guy who can have the brace of the hand, repeater hand bows, so there you can do your conversion there. And he's just kind of like your general any dude. You go through, you can give him whatever weapons you want. Sea Cloak, they should just make that mandatory. Who's not going to take the Sea Cloak? And then you have your choices of all these mounts, the Dark Steed, the Cold One, the Dark Pegasus, the Manticore. And while we're talking about the Manticore, it actually has some cool upgrades now. It can either get a 4+ armor, which is pretty damn good. I do that all the time. You can also do Blind Rage, where it's going to get extra attacks, but then also your opponents are +1 to hit it. So neat little balance there. Not too big of a fan of the Blind Rage, but that Ironheart skin, I like that upgrade a lot. He can be on a chariot, that'd be crazy talk. And then he can also be on a black dragon and fly around and do cool stuff there. So for the most part, I don't think you'll be seeing him too much, just because, sure, there's some cool builds you can do with Dreadlords. Sure, you can kind of make him your, like, every guy should take a challenge guy, but for the most part, there's so many other things in this book, and, why take a Dreadlord, to me, instead of just taking an Assassin? But we'll get back to that. Then we're going to be talking about the Supreme Sorceress. She's your level 4, kind of like before. Now you can be taking any of the lores in the main rulebook, so that's pretty nice. You have the option to put it on a Dark Steed, Cold One, Dark Pegasus, Manticore, Black Dragon. Pretty simple there. No, I was really hoping there'd be something in here. Like, they gave her the option for the Sea Cloak. I was wondering, like, oh, could you actually give her some stuff? But it's not there, so too bad. You can't have another, like, Fire Dragon Mage thing with, like, a 2+ save like the High Elves have. Then we have something new here. We have the High Beastmaster. Now, one of the things that's kind of cool that she does is she has this Beast Slaver rule. And what she can do is basically make a beast around her have an extra D3 attacks. So that's pretty nice. But then look at her, it's like, wow, she has a massive price tag. Massive. like more than double what a Dreadlord is. And at first I was going to be like, flip, don't even look at this. But I went through the options. It's because you get a Manticore for free, or you can put on a Chariot for free. I'd pretty much always do the Manticore. But, all of a sudden, that could be something that could be actually not too bad. Whereas I was just talking about like the whole, Fire Dragon Mage equivalent. This is pretty much where you have it. It's not a dragon, it's a manticore. You can give it the 4+ armor. You're making this manticore have crazy lots of attacks, especially if you give the blind rage, basically adding like 2d3 extra attacks. But the thing is this is where I was saying this is the perfect place for that actual sea cloak, because of course you're going to be flying around. A 3+ ward against shooting and range stuff is be awesome to have. Now remember, it's only the wearer, so it won't be affecting the Manticore, but still really good to have. And then at the same time, she's more of a combat person, right? You can be flying around with Supreme Sorceress on a dragon or whatever and have that 3+ ward, but yay, let's go in there with that 1 attack and have, killing blow. She's going to have the 3 attacks. So that's all of a sudden there a pretty big deal. She's, has a good weapon skill, all that stuff. So that is working out to a good amount of points. We're looking at, with the different upgrades, I would take 370 points. But hey, it's a pretty deadly combat monster that is going to frustrate your opponent, because they know if they shoot out with a cannon, 2/3 of the time you're not going to kill her anyway. Kind of risky. I don't know if you're going to see this in all the builds, but we're going to be talking about full builds later. Now we come to kind of the silly one, and it is the Black Ark Fleet Master. And this guy reminds me a lot of the Sea Helm because, yeah, let's talk about this here. He's basically your like Corsair lord. He has 2-hand weapons, Sea Dragon Cloak, light armor, all that fun stuff. But he also has this rule called Show No Weakness. And what this does is that if you are in a challenge that turn and you're not killed, basically, then you are unbreakable. You make the unit unbreakable. So at first, like, wow, this is so cool. I can get in there, I can issue this challenge, and the whole thing's unbreakable. Well, the first thing is that if this was really critical, they would just refuse the challenge, right? Not that big of a thing. And then you kind of think too, well, like, okay, well, what if I'm going to use him as a counter to the Demon Prince or something like that? I can run in there, he'll have to take the challenge, and then I'm unbreakable, and I can hold this guy up. Well, the problem is that you are really, really weak, because you have light armor and the Sea Dragon Cloak, so you have a 4+ armor. You have no way of not being on foot, so you're going to be thunderstomped all the time. And then for your gear, you only get 50 points. So you can either make him like have a 2+ save or the 4+ ward, but you can't really get him that survivable. So why spend the points on him when you could just be adding in an assassin or just getting more dudes or something like that, right? Why not just, instead of being unbreakable, win combat or be steadfast? It's just one of these things where he's pretty much in there just like that banner was, more if you're trying to make like a fluff thing. Same thing with the Sea Helm, right? Like, okay, if you want to make a real Seaguar type army, well, there's your Sea Helm right there. Perfect character just for it. So that's really this. So there's that for the Lords. I think for the most part, you're only going to be seeing the Supreme Sorceress, maybe a Dreadlord if somebody has some crazy build thought out there. The High Beastmaster, maybe, it's an expensive build, but it's an interesting build. And yeah, definitely the big loser, Black Ark Fleetmaster. Pretty horrible. Flipping the page here, we go to Heroes. Skipping the special characters again. You have your regular Sorceress, so level 2. Again, you can take all the levels, the lores from the main book, so that's nice. You can now take a Dark Steed, Cold One, Dark Pegasus. Nothing really crazy here. Then you have your Master here, and either the Master or the Death Hag, which we'll be talking about, can be your BSB. Now, the Master, pretty much like before. Your everyday dude, make him however you want. You can definitely make him pretty survivable. He can be on there in the Steed, the Cold One, the Dark Pegasus, the Manticore, or the Cold One. This is a thing where you start to look around like, I'm going to have a lot of Manticores in this army. But otherwise, nothing too crazy here. Death Hag, this is going to be one now where, you know, it's going to be like if you're making your Witch Elves thing. So here's your Witch Elves hero, basically. But she has some shenanigans. So she can take one of three of these different options here. As well, she can be on the Cauldron of Blood, which we have to talk about right away here. And she can take a magic weapon up to 50. So unfortunately, you can't take a lot of this other defensive gear. But let's just go and talk about her for a little bit. I really wish one of the things that GW would get back to is saying the page number that this stuff is on. I don't know why they stopped doing that. I think they just did it just to piss me off. One of the things they did here too is just like with the High Elf book is they grouped it by the different things. Like there's the Brides of Cain, and then there are the Witch Elves and the Death Hags and stuff like that. So it's kind of neat too, where they're almost already like explaining to you about how there's different themes within the army. You know, they're not just having all the units and making a person think like, oh, I guess I can combine this and theme. Like, look, here's the fluff for this thing. Here's talking about the units in there. So I like that idea. But, okay, let's get back to this. You can do a war cry. Basically, you have fear, and then you're going to be making it so that people who are taking that fear test do have -3 leadership. And remember, there's the other stuff there too, where you can be taking away the inspiring presence. So doing this here at the -3 leadership for the fear test can be a big deal. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh right, you failed your fear test, you're hitting us on 5s. And for all these type of Witch Elf units, which basically have no armor, you know, if you're not going to have any defense that way, you might as well get by them not hitting you as often. Rune of Cain plus D3 attacks. Okay, whatever. Then you also have the Witch Brew. This one here makes it so that all the models in that unit will get Frenzy if they don't already have Frenzy, and if they do, their Frenzy is giving 2 attacks rather than 1. So, okay. However, you have to then take a -3 penalty for whenever you're trying to see if you have to do the Frenzy charge. So, to me, that can be really nice. Now, I know as a Bretonnian player, I have to deal with this for my Knights Errant, where all the time I have to be taking leadership tests or else they'll be charging off. Now, especially with a Frenzy unit, this can be bad because, you know, if you are forced to charge, you might be being redirected and showing a flank. Now, there are ways to counteract this by putting, like what I do with my Bretonnians, is you just have the Pegasus Knights kind of like in the front, or some other small unit, so that they can't declare a charge unless you actually want yourself to multi-charge and get them out of the way. So you can work around this, but this is definitely a pretty big risk. If you are in a meta with not many redirectors, or if you have an army that's designed to eliminate redirectors, this could be a pretty nice upgrade because you're just adding 10 attacks to your horde, right? So that's pretty nice. But overall, I mean, for taking the one, I really like the War Cry, because even though I'm not really a fan of leadership shenanigans, this is a pretty nice one. Pretty simple, pretty cheap, but at the same time, you are paying for the Death Hag as well. So, and if you are taking her saying, like, well, I have to take a BSB anyway, this is a BSB with no armor, so kind of an issue. Now, she can be on a Cauldron of Blood, and these Cauldrons of Bloods are pretty cool. They're a little bit like before, but now they're chariots. They're not going to be kind of like the War Machine things. So it's just like putting her on a chariot. You're going to be having Magic Resistance 1. It's going to be a Terror thing, all these cool stuff. It's going to be having a 4+ ward save. And the cool thing with this is even though it's a chariot, it can join units. It's going to be just like Skaven, whenever you have the Bell or the Plague Furnace, where it has to be right in the middle. So kind of interesting to have another army that's going to have stuff like this, but basically, if you do this, you'll be then giving them a ward save as well. So you'll be giving them a 5+, and then if they're Witch Elves, and if there's somebody else in the unit, then on a 6+, sorry, they'll be having a 6+ ward. So if for whatever reason you're joining your Dreadlord or a Sorceress to the unit, they'll have a 6+ ward. So it's a nice way of adding that in. Then what it does here is it has a bound level spell, and it's the Fury of Cain. I'm going to take a drink before I start coughing. And what this is basically just handing out Frenzy. This is the one where it targets this unit within 12. It gives them Frenzy. If they already have Frenzy, it makes it so it's 2. And one of the things I thought right away, like, can I stack these? Can I make it so Frenzy is giving you 3 attacks? No. Both of them were worded that Frenzy gives you 2 attacks, not like another additional attack. So it won't stack. But it's a nice thing where if you have one of these cauldrons and it's in a unit, it'll be helping out that unit, and it can be handing it out to other people. It also has it so that this Strength of Cain rule, so that all friendly models, and I don't like that they did models. I wish they did units. It's almost like the whole Ogre Army. What is it? The Thunder Tusk? We actually have to like measure out and see what models. Why can this be units? Anyway, all friendly models within that 6 inches get to re-roll all failed to wound rolls. So that's really nice. That's just the models with the murderous prowess. So just the Dark Elves, not the monsters and stuff like that. But that's a pretty nice thing to have. And the thing is here, is that if you are a Luminarch or something like that, Hurricaneum, you can be behind the unit and just like, okay, I'm within 6, I'm giving them +1 to hit, stuff like this. But because this is models, it makes it a lot harder, and it's almost forcing you to be within the unit. And I gotta say, I'm not a big fan of the Bell. I'm not a big fan of the Plague Furnace, because what it really does is takes away a lot of your attacks and then makes the stuff front and center so that, you know, if Death Hags were easy enough to kill, now they're really easy to kill because there's a lot of people that can direct attacks on them. So, but you're almost forced to do it because if you don't have it in the unit, that's pretty much going to be your only way to make sure the whole unit is within that 6 in order to get all those rerolls. Because if you're behind there, you have to be pretty much like right butt up to it to try and get the whole unit. If we're talking about a horde or something like that. So overall, an interesting interaction, but yeah. It also has Will of the Gods. It's really just saying that it's a chariot that can march. So that's really it there. But overall, that's that. So we'll go back, talk about our heroes. And I mean, looking across this, we have one more to cover, which is actually the cool guy. And that's going to be your Assassin. Now, Assassins used to be very popular in 7th, and then they kind of disappeared because of how, used to be they struck out, killed guys, and nobody could attack back at all. Well, I think we're going to see a reemergence of them, because even though it's kind of the same idea where they don't really have much armor, they can be going after, they're cheap enough and good enough that I think they'll be able to see some use. So they're pretty damn awesome. They start out less than 100 points for, a bare naked assassin. Weapon skill 9, bliss skill 9, initiative 10. So yeah, you will be re-rolling your always strike first attacks. You have additional hand weapon, which I think most people would go for, the repeater hand bow. But then you get to take one of these following things, either the Black Lotus, the Dark Venom, or the Manbane. Now, the Manbane makes it so that you get a +1 to wound. Dark Venom, that's killing blow. And Black Lotus, I'm not going to say I forgot. I'm just going to go back and say I'm checking. But I remember it wasn't as good. Look at this. This is professional. All right. Black Lotus, that's the one where, yeah, for every unsaved wound the character suffers from this, they're going to be at -1 to their leadership. Not that... I'd rather just kill them with Killing Blow, right? It's a little bit cheaper than Killing Blow, but still. When you can only take 1, I wouldn't bother with something like that. When you're pumping out with an assassin on a character, you're there to kill them. Now, the cool thing is that this is almost just like the Witch Hunter, where the Killing Blow, it didn't say if it's just for whatever type of attacks. They just get the Killing Blow rule. So this is where, like, hey, you might want to take that repeater hand bow and try and shoot guys off. You won't have the sniper rule, but hey, if you have somebody that's flying around or whatever, trying to shoot at knights, just Killing Blow the guys, right? go with that. So it's a pretty nice thing. I mean, I think I'm going to keep it pretty cheap. Just go with the additional hand weapon and the killing blow. You can take different weapons with him. You know, you can take items actually for him. So I mean, you could have an assassin now with a 2+ save because you have up to 50 points of gear. You know, that's pretty nice. You're more survivable. But then he's also going to really jump up in his cost. I mean, really, if you're looking at the extra attack and killing blow, you're looking at 115 points, and that's pretty good. That's pretty nice, especially if you're trying to do some combinations here, where you know you're also there with the Death Egg. That's going to be making them take a leadership at -3, or else they're going to fail their fear. You know, even if you're fighting the elite guys, you know, then they're only hitting you on the 5s. So pretty big deal. But I mean, that's the thing. I mean, weapon skill 9, most things, unless you're weapon skill 5, will be hitting you on 5. So pretty good. He should be able to get in there, just kill characters. I am really, you know, I'd be very interested to take a couple of these guys in my list. And we'll be talking about ones where I think they even fit in even better. So let's talk about that. One you're going to see all the time. I'm sure some people are going to really like this bonus sorceress, especially with all the extra arcane gear. I'm a guy who doesn't really like taking all that, especially because there'll be another backup mage coming up here. But for the most part, the big winner to me is the assassin. Death Egg, kind of cool. Assassin, very cool. And it might be a thing where maybe the Death Egg would be your BSB, but it's just such a risky BSB because you have no armor. So, all right, on to core, and core got a little bit bigger. First of all, we now have dread spears, bleak swords, and dark shards. Basically, these are all the old guys. You got your warriors with spears. You have your crossbowmen, but now you actually can take regular swordsmen as well. Why they gave them all these crazy names, I don't know. It'll be interesting going forward whether which catches on. Are people going to call them, hey, here are my dread spears, or here are my, my spearmen? You know, we'll see what people do. But really, the spears and the swords, they're exactly the same points. All these guys can take magical banners, which is pretty cool. Except it's only one of them. You know, so if you have lots of these guys, you can't just like spam them and take things all over the place. But still, pretty nice to just throw these things in here. So spears and swords, same points. You can then go for the crossbowmen. They can take shields as well. So, you can basically just say, hey, if you take your swordsmen, you can give them then their crossbows for 3 points a model. So, looking at that, I really think that you're going to want to go with that, especially, if you take that and give them the flaming banner, that's a pretty decent unit to be shooting things down with. So I really like the crossbowmen more over the other guys, but we'll be talking about this a little bit more in a second. Then you have the corsairs, and I mean the corsairs are the same points as the dread spears and the bleak swords. So it's just saying, hey, all these are basically the same. The corsairs, of course, have a little bit better of an armor because they're going to be having a 4+. The bleak swords will have a 5+ plus a parry. Either way, it's not a very good armor. You're probably better off with the parry with how things are being reduced so much. But either way, yeah, I mean, they can also now take the extra hand weapon, which you're pretty much going to do, and then all of a sudden they're 2 points more. But hey, if you want to be offensive, that's the way to go. And then you have your repeater hand bows, which could be 2 points as well. You can only take one or the other. I don't think you're going to be really seeing that one. We didn't see it before. I don't think you're going to see it now. But yeah, especially now that that frenzy banner for them is gone, a little less tempting. But hey, if you took that blood cauldron, you could just hand it out to them anyway. Say, hey, here's your frenzy. Have fun. You have your Dark Riders. They're still here. And they're not too bad. Same type of things where you can give them shields now, and also the option here for the repeater crossbows. Always really nice to have your fast cav as a core here. Run around, shoot guys up if you want. But here's the real difference. And now you got Witch Elves as core. Now, Witch Elves have always been a pretty good unit because they have so many attacks. But the thing is that since they were special, you're already taking so many other stuff in core. It's like I don't know if I want to add those witch elves. Now as core, pretty good. That could also be why they released a new box that's super expensive, but we won't get into that. Uh, yeah, witch elves, they are not too bad. They can take magic banners like the other guys, except they can now go up to 50 points, whereas the other guys are up to 25. So you can actually take one of the more serious banners. I was going to say, hey, you can take the banner of swiftness, but that's not many points anyway. But, they have those options. And really when you're looking at this, you're really going to have to make your option of which way you want your army to go. And that's one of the things I really like about this, because if you're looking at offensiveness, the spears are okay, but they're only defensive because you only get that extra attack if they come after you. Corsairs are where you're at because you get their extra attacks all the time. They're extra points, but hey, at least they have a 4+ armor. But hey, if you really want attacks, why don't you go with the Witch Elves? Because then you have 3 attacks and you have poison. It's going to be awesome. But hey, at the same time, they're naked, whereas the Corsairs at least have a 4+ armor. So it really depends on the way you want to go. Of course, the Witch Elves, you have to worry about being redirected and stuff like that. They're all going to be leadership 8, so Mind Razor doesn't matter either way. But yeah, I really like that where you can go and design it for whatever way you want the army to be. Hey, if you want to go like the whole Wood Elf style, running around, great. You got your Dark Riders. Either way, I think you're still going to always see the Crossbowman, at least one unit with the Flaming Banner, just because that's a really good spot to have it. But one thing is to talk about what's with the Witch Elves is that they might turn on you because they now have something called Madness of Cain. And really what it is that you can have something else in there that's not a Witch Elf. So hey, if you really want to have your Sorceress joined and bunkered in your Witch Elves, go ahead. But there's a chance that they might actually attack it. So it's basically saying keep your characters the hell out of this unit unless you want to get these guys killed. So that's a pretty big deal. And of course now I can't see it to tell you exactly how it works, but whatever. Basically, don't leave your sorcerers inside the unit because they'll be attacked. And you'll cry, and I'll say, hey, I warned you. So there you go. I mean, really, if I'm going to say something that's a loser, I'd probably have to say the Dread Spears, because for the most part, I don't know why I would take them when for the same points I can get the Bleak Swords. Or, if nothing else, if you're looking for a defensive army or unit, I'd be going with the Corsairs because, hey, they have the better armor save. So yeah, the Spears, unfortunately, that's a thing where, of course, everybody has Spearmen from before, and now I think they'd be the weakest choice. Now I think you're going to be seeing some Bleak Swords, the Swordsman. If you want to go a little bit cheap, for your bunker. The bunker for the Sacrificial Dagger, that's going to be the Swordsman in the back. There's your bunker right there. You're going to have your little shooty units. You might see a horde of Corsairs. You might see a horde of Witch Elves. Either one does a job. One has armor and doesn't get redirected. The other one has more attacks and poison and is also naked and can be redirected. So it's all about a whole risk thing going on here. All right, special units. And we got 3 pages of these guys. First up, we have the Cold One Knights. And there's not a lot to say there. They're the Cold One Knights. Only change to really talk about is just like the Lizardmen. They now have 2 attacks on the Cold Ones. So that's a nice little easy upgrade there. They are, a good amount of points, but hey, they're going to have Strength 6 in the charge, always strike first. Pretty good stuff. Extra attacks on the Knights there. On the Cold Ones. So that's all right. Then you have your Blackguard. Not too much crazy stuff happening on here, just like before. They're your stubborn unit. They're the one that are immune to psychology. It's one of these things where they're there to kind of be like, oh, they're like the honor guard for your leader, but at the same time, you're probably not going to be doing that too much. I like these guys a lot more, going for the mid-size of 10 and just saying, hey, these are guys where I'm going to throw them out there. They're going to chew through whatever stuff you have, and then from my point, hey, I can go and I can Congo line, I can be stubborn, I can do whatever shenanigans I want, right? So they have some tactical uses, and I can definitely see a cheap unit there for 150 points. Just, yeah, there you go. they're a good unit just to throw in. But hey, now they're not capped like before. It's so annoying. These are one of the guys were before where you just could not hoard them because it wasn't possible. They had a max size. That's it. Now you can hoard them. I don't know if I would want to hoard them. I don't think it's really worth it. I think they'll work better in smaller units. But hey, it's a possibility. I bet you're going to see people trying to do it just because they can. Then you got Shades. Shades are awesome as always. You have the same pretty much options. I don't know why you'd ever give them light armor. Just makes it so Lord of Metal is better against you. But otherwise, yeah, they're your scouts. They're the skirmishers going around, shooting stuff, killing stuff with great weapons. Very solid unit. Cold One Chariot, of course, got better because Cold Ones have the extra attack, so 2 more attacks on the thing here. Otherwise, nothing too crazy. I can't remember if it had size before. I think it did, so nothing even changes there. Yeah, that's really it. I mean, it's one of those things where I bet you people were really wishing, like, oh, couldn't that be core? But no, not everybody can have core chariot. So, you got this chariot here, but we're going to have other chariots as well that we're going to be talking about in a second. So you could actually be having kind of a chariot-themed army, even though it's in special. All right. Oh, don't spill. All right, then we're going with our executioners. Now, the executioners definitely got better. Look at their rules, and they're just cool like before, right? They're your elite infantry that, sure, Witch Elves are great. They got lots of attacks, but it's strength 3. These guys are going to be your strength 6 killing blow. These are the killers. Now, before, the big combo was, all right, we really have to deal with this Always Strike Last, so let's take this BSB with the Always Strike First banner to counteract this. Now they got that for free. They already come with Always Strike First, so they are golden. Right away, they can be striking at their initiative 5 and just cranking guys. And I mean, really, this will be very, very deadly. If you start facing hordes of these guys, and, they're not crazy points, I don't see why you would not do that. They are going to be taking out a massive amount of your army before you even get the strike back. Because they'll be going, wounding on 2s, re-rolling those 1s. So, yeah, crazy. And, of course, where that's the killing blow is, not only are they going to be wounding more, they'll be killing, blowing more. They got better. And I definitely expect to see them. Repeater Bolt Thrower. It's there. It's cheaper. Just kind of matching up with the High Elves. Nothing really else to say there. You can take lots of them because you can basically take 4 normally or 8 in a Grand Army. Harpies, still cool. No options, but they're your perfect guys to be throwing out there and redirecting and stuff. Now we have a new one. And this is your Scourge Runner Chariot. And what it is kind of like how the other guys got the Sky Cutter. These guys got this. It's not flying. It's being pulled by regular steeds, so that's kind of worse. It only has a 5+ armor, so that's kind of crappy. But it comes with this harpoon gun. So first of all, the guys on it also shoot because they have these repeater crossbowmen. And then they can also shoot this Ravager harpoon. So of course on the Sky Cutter, they have this bolt thrower that you can shoot, and it's only a lesser strength. This one's at strength 7. So you look at that and you're like, damn, that is good. You got this mobile bolt thrower that can also be a charge-in type thing. And hey, it's even better than the High Elf one, right? So that's really awesome. There's some problems to that too. First of all, maneuverability, right? I mean, this thing is movement 9. So the difference between a movement 9 and a flying chariot is not that different. Not that crazy, okay? However, I'm actually not a fan of this harpoon gun whatsoever. And that's because it has an extra rule. If you hit a unit or a model and you do a wound, you then drag it towards you d6 inches. If it's 3 or more, you also do another wound, no armor saves allowed. So at first, that's pretty cool. If I drag it half the time, I'm really doing D3 plus 1 wounds. That's good, right? Right? No, it's not. Because you are going to be seeing that monster across the board and say, hey, that hell pit, that dragon, that whatever, I need to shoot that guy down. I'm going to shoot that with my bolt thrower. Let's just assume the math is good at the beginning, and I wound you, and I do, on average, 2 wounds. Now, whatever else I do, I'm dragging it closer to you. And I don't know about other people, but I think monsters getting closer is bad. You know, if it was the thing where this shot, like, out of the regular sequence, so at the start of the turn, you shot it, dragged it closer to you, and then you could charge it, that would be good. But the way it is now, it's like, all right, I did really good to that monster, and now it's going to charge me. Oh, or I did really good to that monster, but now I pulled it just enough so I got a flank charge. Right? It's if it wasn't for that drag rule, I would definitely say, like, hey, this is pretty solid. I mean, sure, it only has the 5+ armor, but hey, it's a pretty good mobile repeater bolt thrower that's also a chariot type thing, right? But with that, I just don't really like it. Now, I'm sure there's going to be times where you can make it work, where it's like, okay, this monster is sneaking in, and it's like facing outside, like around a building, and next turn it's going to go and charge you, and then you're going to bring the chariot up the flank. You're going to like drag it back more behind the building so I can't charge, right? There's going to be like situational things where that drag can be really good, but for the most part, you're just dragging them closer to you, and that's bad. So overall, not really a fan. Last one here is the big one, the War Hydra. The War Hydra has become special, and it's also cheaper. There's upgrades you're going to give it, but at its naked state, it's cheaper. A big thing that people will want to know is it lost regen, but the regen has like a special regen that's even better. So first of all, it used to have a base breath attack. That's gone. You can now buy like a cheaper one, kind of like a weaker one. But what it does now is that for every wound you have, you get an extra attack. So you have 3 base, you have 5 wounds, so you can get up to 8 attacks. It doesn't have hatred anymore. It still has a pretty good weapon skill. There's no handlers to roll for, but 8 attacks is pretty damn good. I mean, sure, if you take some wounds, that's going to hurt you. However, here's a really cool thing where it has a rule called, well, first of all, that one's called if one head is severed, and this one's called another one takes its place. So what you do is at the end of your turn, for every wound you've taken, not in that turn, just what the difference is, whatever you're down, you roll a dice. And on a 4+, you get that back. It is really good. Because, I mean, you combine this with like a lower life thing or something else, these guys could really be survivable. I really see them now kind of being combined with, or like compared to the Bastiladon, where it seems like these are the guys you're going to throw into a weak unit, and if they ever do some damage to you or roll something, whereas the Bastiladon will roll a 2+ armor against those weak attacks, this guy says, hey, you can't kill me straight out, heal up, heal up. Now, as cool as that is, the regen was pretty nice because it denied combat res. I mean, if you're hitting with something strong and he regens half of it, that's a bunch of combat res in his favor that you're not getting, basically. Now, he's going to take those hits. So a little bit of an issue, but a very cool rule. He does have the 2 upgrades. If you take either, he'll be 5 more points than he used to be. One is a Fiery Breath, which is basically the weak breath weapon, and then the other one is Spitfire, which is basically an 8-inch shot where you can do that with each of the heads you have, which is, it's okay, but for the most part, I don't really know if I take either of those upgrades to be serious. I think I just keep them nice and cheap and try and multi-charge and go from there. You know, it's one of these things where, I mean, 1 monster is good, 2 monsters is much better. It's one of those things where it's a lot bigger than, you know, 1 + 1 is 2. It's like 1 + 1 is 3. So, War Hydra, very good. Looking across these, biggest loser to me is going to be that Scourge Runner Chariot. Just not a fan whatsoever. Biggest winners to me is going to be the Executioners and the Hydras. I think both of those are very good. You're going to be seeing the Harpies, of course, as like a cheap thrower unit, but they're nothing special. The Bolt Thrower, you know, always good to have Bolt Throwers. You're going to need something to shoot down those Demon Princes, so those will have to be there. And otherwise, I mean, other things are okay, but nothing really stands out like the Executioners or the War Hydra. So now we get the rares, and we're going to start with some crazy stuff. Lots of crazy stuff. All right. First thing you have here, which I had no idea was coming, is the Doomfire Warlocks. These guys are fast cav, but all they have is a hand weapon, right? Nothing really good. Sorry. But no, they are actually very good because they are going to be like backup mages. Sure, they have like poison attacks and silly things like that, but these guys also have some spells. So I'm just going to go with them and make sure I don't mess this up. But they are going to have the Soul Blight, which is a pretty good, awesome spell to have. And then they're also going to have that Magic Missile spell. So pretty good. I believe what it is for every extra 5 models or rank, it's like you get a +1 to cast. I don't want to waste the time trying to find this. Again, why don't they go and just say the page number? Oh, here we are. So, a unit straight up is a level 2. So, right there, it can be pretty damn good. You can be channeling with them and all these things. But yeah, they have the Soul Blight and the Doom Bolt. You get +1 to cast for each rank of 5 or more after the first one to a maximum of +3. But I mean, you're not going to do that. You're not going to take these guys and take massive units of 15 or 20 to try and get big bonuses. You're going to keep it cheap and just do some Soul Blights. Or try and go crazy, go for Doom Bolts. Now, if you do miscast, the way you work it is that the unit just takes D3 wounds to armor saves. So a little bit different there. But another cool thing is these guys have a 4+ ward save against everything except for things with a Mark Slaanesh. So pretty much what these guys are going to do is you're just going to run around. You're going to be using them to, first of all, channel spells, or channel dice, stuff like that, and just Soul Blight and making this stuff weaker so that your Strength 3 attacks can actually be doing quite a bit of damage. They'll be doing just fine at killing war machines, so running around doing that. If you ever need more of the magic missiles, you got that there. So they're a pretty good unit that can do all these different things. And it's one of these things where you could say too, like, I'm not going to take any wizards because I'm just going to take these guys and I can just throw all my dice through them. So that could be an option, especially if I said, like, if you want to do like the Widow thing, running around. These guys will be doing your spells for you. And if you have, a couple of units of them, hey, that's 2 chances for a channel all the time too. So definitely something that's possible, not a ton of points. And then you have this Blood Rack Medusa. Now, what this is, that if you see this one that's going to be coming up, the Blood Rack Shrine, you have the Medusa on the top. Now, you also can take them by themselves. They just have to be one. You can't take like a horde of Medusa or something like that. But yeah, they're actually not too bad. So basically, defense-wise, they are that bad. They don't have any defense. Toughness 4, 3 wounds. These guys can go down. They're a little bit shy of 100 points. They're going to have, though, of course, always strike first. They're going to have frenzy, so they have kind of okay attacks. And then they're also going to have like these glares and stuff. So basically, whenever you're in combat, everybody touching you will have to take an initiative or else, take a wound basically. They also have a shooting attack, which gets 4 shots. You use their initiative instead of their defense. And again, you can be doing wounds that way. No armor saves allowed for all this stuff here. So you kind of think like, hey, this is pretty cool. I'm movement 7, so I can be rushing around. I can be, trying to do stuff here where I'm going to try and just shoot down your stuff, be annoying. But the real issue with these guys here is that they're leadership 2. So with leadership 2 and frenzy, you're going to be failing these tests all the time to be forced to run out and basically be in spots you don't want to be. So, with that in mind, they basically have to work around your general in order to not go crazy. So, if you're someone who's not a fan of harpies and you'd rather use these guys as someone who can kind of like run out and at least do a little bit of damage before you die, sure, these guys can work for that. But for the most part, Not really overly impressed because of that complete lack of defense and no leadership. So they just can't operate away from your lines. They just can't do it unless you're going to do the whole trick where you run up the flank and look the wrong way. Like, sure, this is something where you could say that this is going to go and just rush up 14 inches each turn to try and get around to the war machines. But it's not that crazy for attacks. I just rather be using the harpies or the fast cav or something like that, right? So not totally impressed, but hey, it's an extra option. Now you have the Kraken type thing. Now it has a crazy name. It's called the Charybdis, whatever. It's like the Kraken thing. And it's pretty good. It's going to be having 5 attacks at strength 7. So, I'd love that strength 7 Thunder Stomp. It's kind of like the Carnosaur, except you actually have a 4+ scaly skin. Pretty nice there. He has another kind of situational thing where if you hit all of your attacks, you get an additional strength 7 or additional D6 strength 7 attacks. So, okay, he is weapon skill 5, so this might come up, but it's sure a nice little bonus there. He also has this abyssal howl. And I'm just going to go and make sure I read it just right because it is not too bad. And what that really does is that enemy units that are in base contact with one or more of these must re-roll all leadership tests. Now, I've already said we have a little bit of leadership shenanigans in here. So if you have the Death Hag, that's going to be going and say, take a fear test, a -3. Well, it's at -3 re-rolled if you even pass it. So that's pretty nice. You also have the spells saying, where you don't get your inspirational presence. So you're just going to make leadership tests even harder. And if you're forcing the re-roll, if they're successful, that's even worse, right? So what I can really see is if you're doing that and having like your witch elf or your witch horde with the hag, you would then be combining it with this monster to really get the most out of it. Plus, if nothing else, hey, this guy will be doing fear tests himself, right? Now, it's only if you're in base to base, so it won't be for the terror test when he charges. However, once you're in there, they'll be taking a fear test and they'll have to re-roll it. So that's a pretty nice thing to have in there just because why not? It's the same price as the War Hydra, but it's in rare. And overall, the Hydra, of course, is going to be really nice because it gets its wounds back. But and both of them have the same toughness, same wounds. But overall, if you want for something that's going to be more offensive, that's going to be this guy here. Same points, going to be pretty cool. Now, the next thing here is the Blood Rack Shrine. And really what it is just this Medusa Shrine. It's the same type of thing where you have to, avert your gaze, all this stuff. I believe it's a chariot. I'm not seeing where it says here. Yeah, it's a chariot. Just a 6+ armor, that's it. But it has 5 wounds. It's one of these things where I just don't really see it. It's so many points. Sure, if you have something you're going after with low initiative and you want to be getting these things with no armor saves, sure, that's okay. But it's one of these things, again, if you're going to go for like the crazy chariot army, there are quite a few options you could take. But otherwise, not really too impressive. It's just too weak, and I think these things are just going to get killed off. And, they're slow enough because they're only movement 5. They have that whole movement of God thing? No. Oh, Will of Gods. Yeah, so it can actually march. So it can go 10, but still not really overly impressed. All right, then you have the Sisters of Slaughter. Now, what these guys do here is that these are kind of like your elite witch elves because what they're going to have is a hand weapon shield. So first of all, they won't have the 3 attacks each. They don't even have Frenzy here, so they won't have the extra attack unless you at least cast it on them. But, they are a little bit more defensive because they have the 6+ armor, but that's almost kind of wasted because they have this Trial of Blades where they're going to have a 4+ ward anyway. Well, hey, I guess a 6+ armor might come in at some point. I don't know. But one of the cool things is that while in combat there, they don't get their rank bonus. So that's pretty good. A little extra here thing too. But overall, for the most part, They're basically just witch elves that are more defensive, but because you lose all those attacks and you also lose the poison, it's just I can't really see it. I just can't really see being worth that loss of all attacks because I mean you're really taking them to begin with to be your offensive unit. So if all of a sudden you take that away, it's just not really there anymore. Now, one of the things you will have, sorry, that thing was the Dance of Death for the 4+ ward. And also the people that are attacking don't get parry saves. But the Trial of Blades, that's the one where you get +1 to hit into wounds if they have a higher weapon skill or strength. So for the most part, they're going to be hitting basically a lot of times on a 2+, so that's really good. Even with that +1 there, you're probably only wounding on a 3, probably a 4, depending on what you're fighting. It's a lot of points, and it's just I just don't really see it. So overall for the rares, I really like the Doomfire Warlocks. Basically the Kraken's pretty cool. Sisters of Slaughter were a little bit of a flop for me. I don't know if there's some combination I'm not seeing, but for the most part, I just don't really like them. I mean, if you're going to run these guys, you're going to be offensive. But I really like the Doomfire Warlocks. I'd be taking one in every army pretty much. And as that monster, the monster's pretty good. So that's everything. And sorry, I have a little bit of a cold here. So sorry if it's a little bit off. But let's talk now about some builds. And I think actually you're going to be seeing a lot of what you see from High Elves. Because the first thing you can say is, there's a lot of cool little infantry here. You could take a lot of infantry, but I don't really see that. The regular infantry, like the Dread Spears or whatever, they're just not worth it, right? You're just not going to see that. The Witch Elves are really good, but they made them so expensive. So for the most part, I think people are going to be picking either, they're going to take their crossbowmen for the banner fire, shoot that stuff off. You're going to be seeing either like the Horde of the Corsairs or going for the Witch Elves. I mean, of course, if you're going for the whole Mind Razor thing, you don't need to take the Hordes or whatever. But that whole part there, the whole core section, could go either way. Past that, it's really going to get really interesting. And what I really like about this book is that there really is a lot of really good options. I mean, there's so many things in there. You could say, like, you know what? This game I feel like taking this. This game I feel like taking that. And there's a lot of things that are pretty good in there. Overall, though, I think we're going to see one of two different builds. One, we're going to be seeing the shooty build. You're going to see a lot of the bolt throwers and a lot of the crossbowmen because that's what we're seeing from the High Elves. Same type of idea, take lots of bolt throwers, lots of shooting, just shoot them down. And then once they finally get to you, just reducing their strength, using that Word of Agony, and just making their world a big bunch of pain. And two, if you're doing this basically like MSU type thing with a lot of units of like 10 crossbowmen, and or the person knows looking at you that you have a couple of assassins, they don't know where those assassins are at. And so you can really play like this psychological thing of, hey, where are they? I got like 6 units of crossbowmen. Where are you going to go for it, right? So I really think that could do very well. The other one is the monster build. Now, for the monsters, especially with the War Hydra, there is a lot of possibility there with the Laurel Life. If you are running a Laurel Life type caster, and you have all these monsters, especially the Hydras, that's like healing itself up, it could be a real massive pain to try and deal with these guys and actually get them killed. Of course, if you hit them with a cannon and stuff, now, even if you don't have flaming to take off the regen, they're going to be a little bit of trouble there. But hey, they still get to their turn, try and get all those wounds back. It could be a real deal. And of course, you have all the different options to add in the Manticores, which now have the 4+ armor. You can be adding in also basically those Krakens, which are, pretty damn good. So I think there's a very good possibility of seeing the monster army. The only thing that's going to hold you back a little bit there is the whole fact that whereas for the high elves, a lot of their monsters are flying, right? Phoenixes are awesome, and they just fly over whatever they don't care about. Same thing for the Warriors of Chaos. You know, they have their Demon Prince and their Chimeras, and they're just going to fly over anything that gets in their way. These guys aren't flying, other than the Manticores. So all the Hydras and the Krakens, they'll have to deal with whatever you put in their face. So that will be a negative, but I still think you can make a very viable and strong monster army from them, where at the same time, you still have your core to have all the stuff you need for Watchtower and also for, Blood and Glory. Making sure you have all the banners you need. So that could be very strong. Another build you can see too is kind of a mix. Especially, I think, for the most part, you are going to see defensive Dark Elves. That was the main build before, where they're more defensive. They hit you with spells, they'd shoot you up, and then whenever you got close, okay, charge in, Mind Razor, destroy you. And now I think they have the real option where they're going to be using either the monsters or the witch elves, because that's the thing where I said the big negative to the witch elves, especially with that death hag, was the whole thing where they can redirect you. But if you're running their shooting army, then you can shoot down all the stuff they would be using to redirect you and just get rid of it all. So, and with the thing there too, you might have the harpies in front to make sure they won't just run off, whatever. But either way, there's a lot of good combo builds. But overall, yeah, I think you're going to see a shooty army. So, hey, there's going to be people that don't like that, but at the same time, hey, there's no reason why you can't make a real big combat one with lots of big hordes or lots of MSU stuff. There's really a lot of possibilities here. And so with talking about my thoughts of the book, this really just follows on with the whole trend we've been seeing for 8th edition, where they are all really good books with a lot of good options, very well internally balanced, and yeah, it's going to be interesting to see which way people go with it. So there you go. Thanks for watching. Our next video coming up will be the one we're going to be talking about the special characters. That'll be next weekend. But until then, thanks for watching. Bye.